For decades, John Wayne was more than an actor. He was a symbol. The towering figure in cowboy hats and boots represented courage, stoicism, and the rugged spirit of America. He strode across screens as the fearless soldier, the honorable lawman, the unshakable hero who always stood for justice. Millions idolized him, believing in the truth of the legend. But behind the iconic persona was a man whose real life was far more complicated, often unsettling, and very different from the myth Hollywood had carefully constructed. Born Marion Robert Morrison in Iowa, Wayne's path to stardom was far from destined. An unremarkable football player at USC, he lacked the natural charisma and polish that would make him a cinematic icon. Hollywood, however, saw potential, not in the man he was, but in the image he could become. Studio executives didn't just give him a new name, they sculpted an entirely new identity. John Wayne was no longer just a stage name. It was a carefully engineered character, one Wayne would inhabit on and off camera for the rest of his life. His walk, his voice, his mannerisms, every element was honed to create the illusion of a larger-than-life American hero. This persona was built around qualities that would become central to his appeal: fearlessness, rugged individualism, and unwavering patriotism. In films like The Green Berets, The Sands of Iwo Jima, and countless westerns, Wayne's characters never hesitated in the face of danger. They confronted enemies without flinching, defended the weak, and embodied a sense of moral certainty. Yet the man behind the roles often failed to live up to these ideals. During World War II, when men his age risked their lives in combat, Wayne secured a 3A deferment, citing family responsibilities, despite being in excellent health. While contemporaries like Jimmy Stewart and Clark Gable served, and some saw battle, Wayne remained in Hollywood, building a career portraying men of valor he himself had never demonstrated in real life. Wayne's devotion to the patriotic image was as much performance as belief. He amplified his pro-military stance in interviews and public appearances, celebrating bravery he never personally demonstrated. Fellow filmmakers and actors noted the contrast. John Ford, who directed Wayne in many classics, reportedly referred to him as phony brave behind closed doors. The gap between Wayne's off-screen behavior and the heroic figures he embodied was apparent to colleagues, though invisible to his adoring public. Even Wayne's famed Western skills were largely manufactured. While he became known as an accomplished horseman and rugged outdoorsman early in his career, he lacked these abilities. Camera angles, editing, and patient animal handlers masked his limitations, turning a careful performance into the illusion of effortless mastery. His iconic swagger, the Wayne walk, was similarly practiced until it became inseparable from his public persona. Perhaps the most unsettling contradictions emerge in Wayne's personal beliefs. In a 1971 Playboy interview, he openly expressed racist and homophobic views, including support for white supremacy and disparaging comments about Native Americans. These beliefs were far removed from the fair-minded, principled characters he played on screen. The studio system responded by burying the controversy, restricting coverage of the interview, promoting positive stories about his patriotism, and reinforcing the heroic myth that audiences had come to love. Even decades after his death, Wayne's controversial views have often been downplayed or omitted in official biographies and museum exhibitions. Wayne's private life also revealed troubling patterns of behavior on set. Those who worked with him recall an unpredictable, controlling, and sometimes intimidating presence. He would publicly humiliate actors for minor mistakes, dictate how scenes should unfold regardless of the director's vision, and assert dominance over crew members. Women and younger performers were particularly vulnerable to this behavior, while favored collaborators, usually men who reflected Wayne's own values, received support and generosity. The contrast between the hero of his films and the man in his trailers was stark. Another shadow over Wayne's legacy involves his alleged collaboration with government agencies during the McCarthy era. As a staunch anti-communist, he reportedly helped identify individuals in Hollywood suspected of leftist sympathies, effectively ending careers while maintaining plausible deniability. Declassified documents and testimony from former colleagues suggest that Wayne operated behind the scenes, influencing studio decisions to blacklist or graylist artists based on political beliefs. While he publicly denied involvement in blacklisting, private actions suggest otherwise. Hundreds of careers were disrupted, sometimes irreversibly, as a result of a system in which Wayne played a prominent, if discreet, role. Wayne's personal struggles with health further illustrate the chasm between image and reality. By the mid-1960s, at the height of his fame, he was diagnosed with lung cancer. Yet the diagnosis was concealed from the public. Only family and a handful of studio executives were aware. Press releases downplayed the seriousness, referring to minor health issues, while Wayne continued to smoke heavily on and off camera. Cigarettes had become an inseparable part of his screen persona, symbolizing toughness and nonchalance toward danger. Admitting the truth could have undermined the myth of the invincible Duke and potentially endangered his brand. After surgery and partial removal of his lung, Wayne resumed smoking within months, exposing himself and crew members to secondhand smoke. Camera angles were adjusted, stunts were modified, and scripts were simplified to hide the effects of his illness. The public continued to see an unshakable figure, unaware of the fragility behind the facade. When cancer returned years later, he faced a prolonged and agonizing decline from stomach cancer, relying on feeding tubes, oxygen, and pain medication. His 6'4" frame dwindled to 160 pounds, leaving him nearly unrecognizable. Unlike the heroes he played, Wayne's final days were marked by vulnerability, dependence, and fear, a stark departure from the stoic, self-reliant characters that had captivated audiences. Even in death, Wayne's image was carefully curated. Media coverage emphasized courage and dignity, avoiding the grim realities of his suffering. The public narrative preserved the hero, while the human being beneath, the man who struggled with mortality, regret, and doubt, remained largely invisible. Close friends and nurses recalled moments in which he expressed fear, remorse, and longing for more meaningful engagement with life, family, and personal values, things no movie script could convey. John Wayne's story is not simply about one man's contradictions. It is a cautionary tale of Hollywood's power to create myths and control cultural memory. Wayne's persona, carefully crafted, maintained, and protected, even after his death, illustrates the lengths to which the entertainment industry will go to preserve profitable symbols. He became more than an actor. He became a commodity, a representation of American ideals, a hero millions admired without ever fully knowing the man behind the image.